Hi, I'm Dan Stair of Daniels Training Services, and I provide training and consulting services for the management of waste and also for the transportation of hazardous materials. In this video, we are going to be focusing on the USDOT regulations and their definition of a Class 3 flammable liquid and combustible liquid. Okay, so a couple things. I'm summarizing some sometimes very complex regulations, so be aware of that. You have to look for more information. I have links to articles on these topics in the description to this video. And of course, you always have to do your own research into the regulations, and I can help you to do that. Remember, regulations may change, so check the date on this video. However, I don't expect these particular regulations to change significantly anytime soon. And of course, you can always refer to my disclaimer video just to check that out as well. Make sure we cover all our bases there. Okay? A couple things then about the scope and applicability of what we're covering here in this video. First off, we're just going to be looking at the USDOT, the U.S. Department of Transportation, and their definition of a Class 3 flammable liquid and a Class 3 combustible liquid. We won't be looking at the exceptions from regulation, like the combustible liquid exception and the exception for alcoholic beverages. That will be in another video, okay? Keep in mind that don't confuse this information with the regulations of the US EPA. They have a definition of a hazardous waste, a D001 ignitable hazardous waste, which many people confuse with this one. They are not the same. So the US EPA, the US Environmental Protection Agency, and their regulations for a ignitable hazardous waste, their determination of what is an ignitable hazardous waste is different than what we're going to be looking at here. All right? Okay, a couple other notes just to keep track of as we go through this. I will be referring to the metric measurements. Now, the USDOT regulations have both metric and our US standard. However, even the USDOT bases compliance on the metric. So that's what I'm going to use in this video. Also, many times I'll be referring to flash point. The flash point, put simply, is the temperature at which a liquid gives off vapors that will ignite. Okay? So there's a test method that you have to use, actually several, for determining flash point. But to keep it simple, think of a puddle of gasoline, right? Even on a cold day, it's giving off vapors that if you held a match over it, it would ignite, all right? That's the definition of the flash point. The lower the flash point, the more dangerous a flammable liquid is, all right? And one other minor thing, and sort of thing I notice is that the Class 3 hazard class is not broken down into two different divisions. There's not a flammable liquid division and a combustible liquid division. They're just all lumped together in Class 3 flammable liquid. Minor point there, really doesn't change compliance any. Okay, so with that aside, now let's talk about how USDOT defines a Class 3 flammable liquid. I'm going to start with that one. First off, got to be a liquid, okay? Kind of a no-brainer there, but it's got to be a liquid. And it has to have a flash point of not more than 60 degrees Celsius. All right, that's key. Now, I'm going to be talking about other stuff here. We're going to be talking about this and that and fire point and support combustion and all, but really that's the key right there. If you have a liquid and the flash point is 60 degrees Celsius or less, that's most likely going to be a Class 3 flammable liquid. We're not done, but that's your key right there, okay? A Class 3 flammable liquid may also be a liquid with a flash point at or above 37.8 degrees Celsius. Okay, so that's how low it can go, and it can go a lot higher than that. If it's in a bulk packaging, so that's a packaging with a capacity of greater than 119 gallons, so it's big, okay? So, and you're heating it up above its flash point. So this particular classification for a class 3 flammable liquid is where it's possible you're taking a liquid and you're heating it up above its flash point, where it may not normally be a class 3 flammable liquid, but you're heating it up to the point and transporting it that way, in which case it's at or it's above its flash point, its own flash point, it can very easily burn. So that would also be a class 3 flammable liquid. Now, there are some, but not these, okay? There are some ways out of that class 3 definition. So for example, if your liquid meets the definition of a compressed gas, well, that's out. That would not be a class 3 flammable liquid. Also, if you have a mixture where a component of that mixture makes up at least 99% of that mixture, and it has a flash point of 60 degrees Celsius or higher, and it's not being transported above its flash point. So, that, you know, and again, that one is pretty rare. I don't know when that would happen or how, but if you had a flammable liquid and 99% of it was made up of something with a flash point greater than 60 degrees Celsius, well, then that's not a flammable liquid anymore. If you have a liquid with a flash point greater than 35 degrees Celsius, that does not sustain combustion. So you might have something that flashes, whoosh, but then it goes right back out again. It's not able to keep burning. That would not be a class 3 flammable liquid either, despite all the other stuff. If you have a liquid with a flash point greater than 35 degrees Celsius and it has a fire point greater than 100 degrees Celsius. Now, fire point is different than flash point. We're not getting into that here. You have to dig a little bit deeper for that one. And finally, a liquid with a flash point greater than 35 degrees Celsius in a water miscible solution with a water content of more than 90% by mass. That also would not be a class 3 flammable liquid, even if it flashed below 60 degrees Celsius. All right. So that's our class 3 flammable liquid. A lot of stuff, but in my experience, really it hinges on that flash point of 60 degrees Celsius or less. All right. That's your key for having a class 3 flammable liquid. Okay. What about the combustible liquid? Well, once again, got to be a liquid. Okay. Also, doesn't meet the definition of any other hazard class. So it's all on its own. There are 8 other hazard classes. The combustible liquid can't be any of them and a combustible liquid. Okay, so it's all on its own. And then here's the key. It has a flash point of greater than 60 degrees Celsius and less than 93 degrees Celsius. So it has that range, greater than 60, less than 93 degrees Celsius, falls in there. That would be a class 3 combustible liquid. So, you know, and put simply, if you were to think of a class 3 flammable liquid, think of gasoline, right? Very low flash point, very volatile, easily burns. When you think of a class 3 combustible liquid, at least I think of diesel fuel. Still burns, but not as readily, typically not as volatile. It has a higher flash point. So that's our 2 main ones right there, flammable liquid, combustible liquid. But we're not done. And this is something that anyone who offers for transport a class 3 flammable liquid should know about this. You may, as the shipper of the hazmat, you may reclass your flammable liquid to a combustible liquid under certain conditions, okay? So what are they? Number 1, you have a flash point at or above 38 degrees Celsius, okay? So it has to be at or above that threshold, but notice we're still well below 60 degrees Celsius. So we are right in the range of a class 3 flammable liquid. But if it doesn't meet the definition of any other hazard class, okay? And transportation is by highway or rail. It pretty much has to stay on the ground unless it's not practical. So say, and that's kind of subjective, but let's say you're on an island, okay, and there's no way to truck it off to the mainland for transportation or whatever. You may transport it by air or vessel if those are the only practical ways to transport it. And that's it, okay? So flashpoint at or above 38 degrees Celsius doesn't meet the definition of any other hazard class, usually going to be going by highway or rail. You could, under those conditions, you could take your class 3 flammable liquid and simply reclass it to a class 3 combustible liquid, all right? One other thing, a flammable liquid can't be reclassed to a combustible liquid if you're heating it up above its flash point. That would not work. But otherwise, you can do it. Now, and that's really it then. So we have those 3 different things to look at. You might have a flammable liquid, you might have a combustible liquid, or you might have a flammable liquid that you could turn into, you can reclass to a combustible liquid. Well, why would anybody want to do that? Well, in another video, I'll talk about the combustible liquid exception and all the advantages that could come from that. That'll be another video, all right? So, again, brief summary of the regulations, research my articles, go to the regulations, contact me if you have questions, and contact, you may also contact the USDOT as well if you want an official position on something. So that's it. I appreciate you watching my video. Please subscribe to my channel. That really helps me out getting those subscriptions up, so I can get my channel legitimized with YouTube and all that. And please share this information. Give me a like, share it on Facebook, share it on Twitter. Let's share this information. And if you have a comment for me, by all means, leave your comments down below and I will reply to them. Thank you very much.